Hi, Brian Schwager here, founder of the Wellness Movement Center. In today's video blog, I'm going to present a wellness approach to functional strength and power training for older adults. With the adult population growing into a new era, the golden age and the golden era of wellness is now well in hand. There are more people turning 65 now than ever before in our history, as we have reached a milestone in our baby boom population. This is the main population that we as healthcare and health and fitness professionals are going to be taking care of, educating from this point forward. And all that we can glean from this population, we need to then utilize for the populations that will follow. It's important for me to indicate here that when I talk about a wellness approach, I'm going to always be referring back to my 4 principles to wellness and movement. Principle number 1, emotional health, how we handle stress. Principle number 2, biochemical health, how we sleep. Principle number 3, nutritional health, how we digest, when we are eating and drinking. And then principle number 4, physical health, how are we moving? Without those 4 principles in place, we cannot properly create functional strength and power training and training programs for the older adults unless we are looking at all 4 principles. We have to look at the lifestyle factors in order to look at the physical factors. I teach my clients that if you want to move well, you have to feel well first. The body works as a system of systems. Every system in the body coordinates with one another. There are various systems in the body, being the nervous system, respiratory, cardiovascular, immune, digestive, endocrine, etc., etc. And as an integrated whole, they all communicate. So by taking the 4 principles approach, we are looking at the interconnectedness of all the systems in the body, bringing them to balance so that we can produce functional strength and power. A wellness approach signifies that we need to look at the lifestyle factors of our clients before we get started. We need to assess those lifestyle factors, we need to assess their movement, and then we need to address how they're going to build functional strength and power. Why do they need functional strength and power? Well, they're both important because in everyday life we have various movement patterns that are required to get through life. They've been with us for as long as we can remember. Things like walking, running, jogging, bending, squatting, twisting, pulling, pushing, lunging, and getting to the ground and getting up from the ground are all primal movement patterns that we need to function in everyday life. These are normal everyday activities that we have to use in nature, in the world itself, in order to just have our daily life activities get done. So whether we're working in the yard, or whether we're working in the house, whether we're working out in the gym, or whether you're running on a trail, or you're walking in the woods, all of these functional patterns have to be optimal before we can build on top of them. When we define strength, strength is simply how much work we can produce, how much force can we produce against an object. So whether I'm pushing against this wall, which won't move, that will produce force. But if I wanted to measure my capacity, let's say I was doing a wall push-up, like I do for my senior population, to measure strength and endurance. I have to have work over time. How much can they do over time? And then simply put, power is the amount of force your muscles can generate quickly. So it's strength times speed equals power. Why does the older population need that? Why do they need power? We understand that they may need strength to function in everyday life. We have to know what their outcome is. If their outcome is to be functionally independent because maybe they want to still do things on their own, then we know that we need that strength and that work over time to be improved. But how do we know if they need power? So let me demonstrate a little bit about how you're going to use functional strength and power in some, everyday movement patterns. So first we want to take into consideration something as simple as sitting. For me, I don't have to think about being able to get down to that chair and get back up. But for a lot of my clients, that's a lot of work. It depends on how much dysfunction they have currently. They may have hip tightness or knee instabilities or back soreness. And they still have to be able to get up and down out of a chair regardless, even if they're resting. If we say don't exercise, but you need to take it easy, they're still going to have to bend and then squat to get in this chair. It takes a lot of work. So controlling my motion on the way down will take strength and stability. Now here's where the power is going to be put into place, because I'm going to have to use force times speed to get out of this chair. Now if we did it in slow motion, I would lean forward a little bit first, and then by using my hips, I can generate power. But where all that power is really coming from is from the ground, because I have to push into the floor to exert force onto my body. So just getting up out of a chair takes power. But imagine if I weighed 200 pounds, or if I was very deconditioned, or I've had muscle wasting or weakness, and I weighed 130 pounds. It would still take a lot of power to get out of that chair. And it would take a considerable amount of strength and stability to be able to sit down without having to use objects to get into the chair, let alone to use objects to get out of the chair. If we look at it that way, we begin to understand how we do need to do some strength training and power training in our daily exercise or weekly exercise activities, so it carries over to real life. Let's go a step further. So let's say I'm getting into my car or my truck. Now it depends. If I'm getting into a truck, I have to step up into the truck, or maybe not quite that high, but I have to step up into the truck. So I have a client who's 88, and she uses a step stool to get into her caretaker's truck. So she has to step up and then step into the truck while holding onto the door. And then once she's in, she has to pivot and turn and get in. That's a lot more work than just sitting and standing. Getting into a car, depending how you get into these vehicles, there's a right way and there's a wrong way. Now most of us just open the car door, and what we're going to do is we're going to get into like a single leg stance. We're going to put our foot into the car. We're going to kind of do a lunge and a squat and a bend and a twist and a turn all at the same time. That's like 6 movements just to get into a vehicle if we were to break it down into its sections. Safely getting into an automobile would be to open the door. Now, you have to turn. You still have to negotiate how you're going to get in and sit on the seat, and then all you have to do is turn and get ready to drive. And then when we get out, some of us, will have to use the door and maybe the seat to propel us out. Here's with that power deficit. If somebody has to use a lot of devices or use other things to keep them stable and to produce power and force, that's showing me that they have a lack of capacity. And then lastly, what about getting to the floor? A lot of times, I'm working with my clients, I have floor exercises for them. But if they can't even get to the floor, then I got to create something really unique for them to do at home on the bed, or at least, on something that is higher up than the floor. But getting down to the floor is part of my functional capacity testing for seniors. So in that, I'm going to ask them, whatever they need to get down and get up, they can use. So I always have a chair there, maybe I have 2 chairs there, and the less they need to get down, the more functional capacity that they have. But as they get up, this all takes strength and function. Again, if they have to use their arms on their legs, that's a greater strength capacity. If they have to use other things, then their strength capacity rating is going down because they're having to use more props or devices to get up from that, from that on-ground position. And then they got to get all the way back up. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of times, my clients are doing things close to the ground. They're weeding, they're working in their gardens, they're cleaning floors, they're picking up stuff, they're having to get down to clean or pick up something. They got to be able to get up from that position. So that's a great way of looking at functional strength and power. Now I'm going to pick up this chair. That's going to be a pulling motion. And then once I have it, this is going to be strength, capacity, or endurance. I'm going to be able to walk with that chair and then set it down safely. These are things we do in everyday life that we take for granted. How about pushing a grocery cart? That's a pushing exercise. Here's an example of a pulling exercise. So maybe they're pulling something across the garage, or they're pulling their couch over to rearrange the furniture. Hey, like I said, these are all basic fundamental movement patterns, and we have to be able to do these effectively. Let me close by saying this. Everyone's an athlete. Everyone is. For my older population, to do what they do in everyday life, to function, takes athleticism. Not just the athlete that runs down the field, performs in an event. Oh, that takes a lot of athleticism. But what about just daily activity? We are all athletes at heart. We all need strength and power to perform and to get through life. So, in closing, we're all athletes. If you want to learn more about how you can enhance your functional strength and power, contact the Wellness Movement Center or contact someone in your area that can do a thorough wellness lifestyle assessment and a movement assessment on you, and then develop a plan you can follow to enhance your functional strength and power. I'm Brian Schwager, founder of the Wellness Movement Center. I always share because I care. Bye for now.